over the years, these little virtual awards for doing various tasks in a video game have always been rather interesting. Like, yeah, you can pick up a bunch of achievements just for playing through a game a lot of the time, but which ones are the hardest of the hard, the most rare and almost unobtainable achievements that are available to still get today? We're looking at the hardest Xbox and PlayStation achievements and trophies of all time. Only rule for this list is the achievement has to still be possible to be picked up today. Let's back up and look at Call of Duty. We've done a whole video back in the day on Call of Duty achievements. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare on the Xbox 360 and PS3 actually set a standard of completing the games on the hardest difficulty veteran with really challenging gameplay, but it was possible to pick up the achievements for completing the game on veteran difficulty. The next Call of Duty game though, Call of Duty World at War, to this day is notorious for being one of the hardest and most difficult video game experiences for its hardest difficulty. And mind you, this was before Call of Duty added the realistic difficulty in later games. This is just veteran, and so many players have attempted this and so many have failed to complete World at War on the hardest difficulty. The game is incredibly unforgiving. Not only can you take damage just for like standing in the open for a split second or just being in cover some of the time, but then the worst thing is if you stay put for too long, grenades will just start falling from the sky randomly and you'll die from those. The game forces you to push out in the open where you're most likely to get killed. There's some sections where the enemy spawns seem infinite, and not only are the first couple of levels hard, the later levels in the game ramp up in difficulty substantially harder. To make matters worse, co-op exists for this game, but 2 of the levels aren't in co-op, so those don't count and you can't get the achievement in co-op. You're on your own and you're just stuck dealing with the hardships this game brings. On the flip side, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has a very challenging one as well, but this one encourages co-op with the Star 69 achievement, one that we worked so hard on a few years back to actually get, and this one was challenging. Modern Warfare 2 had Spec Ops mode. It was a really fun challenge mode where you fight off enemies and do specific things, and you have timers sometimes, or you have to go do certain objectives, but also there's different levels you can do each Spec Ops on, and you get different stars for your completion. Now the first few sections of this, not that bad, a little bit of trial and error and you can get the 3 stars, but man, when you get to the last 2 to 3 sections, the difficulty really starts to get hard and you have to coordinate with your co-op partner if you want even a chance at getting a 3-star rating. You also have to play pretty much perfectly if you're going to pull it off. To make matters even harder, some of them are incredibly difficult, like holding out at the estate when the Juggernaut shows up. There's this one where you have to fight off like 10 Juggernauts, and either you have to find like a perfect hiding spot and pray that the Juggernauts just don't find you, because they'll usually figure out a way either way, or get a really careful lineup for a grenade launcher to land a headshot to quickly kill a Juggernaut. And remember, if one person dies, that's it for the run. There was also water work where you had to time these breaches, then fight through a ton of very challenging enemies, and then get another perfect breach without messing up. This was so unforgiving, but you can technically beat this one. And over the years, Call of Duty would introduce some other really challenging achievements, but I think for the matter of representing Call of Duty in this video, the World at War Modern Warfare 2 ones are just like the most iconic and memorable. But if you want more hard Call of Duty achievements, you should watch the video we did on that. What about Halo the Master Chief Collection? Halo is known for having a ton of achievements. The Master Chief Collection has 700 potential achievements you can get, and one of them is just really challenging to actually get. The Halo Lasso Master Achievement. For context, the Master Chief Collection is already notorious for having the Halo 2 Lasso achievement, where you have to complete Halo 2's story on legendary difficulty in the Lasso playlist, which has skull modifiers turned on, making the game substantially harder. To get the achievement alone, just for beating Halo 2 Lasso, is one of the biggest feats any Halo player will ever face. Remember, with these modifiers on, if one player dies, it counts as both players being dead and you have to go back to the last checkpoint, or if you're doing solo, you have to go back to the beginning of the level. The enemies are incredibly unforgiving, and it's just one of the hardest challenges altogether. But then the Lasso Master achievement doesn't just require you to beat Halo 2, but you have to have the Lasso achievements for Halo CE, the first one, Halo 2, Halo 3, and Halo 4 before this achievement is awarded. Halo 2 is incredibly hard, but Halo Combat Evolve also has some really challenging sections, things that took us so many attempts when we were covering the Lasso runs on our channel. But even if you get past Halo 1 and 2, Halo 3 and especially Halo 4 demand some sort of intimate knowledge of those games as well, and the paths to take, the enemies enemies and how you encounter them. They're not simple walks in the park after the first two. Not too many people even attempt to go for the Lasso Master achievement, and it's really reserved nowadays just for people who are going after full 700 out of 700 achievement completion, and it makes sense why not too many people go after this achievement. There's also achievements for doing Reach and ODST on Lasso difficulty if you go for full game completion as well, and those aren't walks in the park either. Okay, next, let's look at the Seriously 3.0 achievement from Gears of War 3. For this achievement, you have to reach level 100 and unlock all the Onyx medals in the multiplayer side of things. Now, the medal system in Gears of War 3 was essentially a challenge system where you would level up specific challenges like headshots, finisher kills, matches, etc., going through the levels bronze, silver, gold, and then finally Onyx. Now, there are 65 of these challenge or medals, and to reach the Onyx level for these, you need to have like an insane amount of playtime to max out the things with Onyx challenges being like 4,000 headshots or 6,000 explosive kills, 3,000 matches in every game mode. It's all stuff like that, just crazy amounts of playtime. This is something that easily could take players months, if not years, to get through all these challenges, and there are very few people who have actually done it the legit way without like using boosting lobbies back when Gears of War 3 was more popular. But even then, if you boosted or used private lobbies or matches, it would take you a long amount of time since you still need to play thousands and thousands of private matches for these achievements. This achievement really doesn't mess around. Now, to be fair, we picked this specific one here, but this achievement actually exists in every single main Gears of War game, and it is kind of hard to say which version of this specific achievement is the hardest, but it seems a lot of people remember Seriously 3.0 being the hardest. Maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it actually was just genuinely the hardest, so that's why we're looking at that here. But still, pat on your back if you've gotten the version of this achievement in a different Gears of War game as well. On the other hand, Rock Band 2 for some reason has one of the hardest achievements. It's an achievement called Bladder of Steel, which essentially needs you to play all 84 songs in the Endless playlist without failing a single song or pausing the game, which according to a forum post takes about 6 hours and 30 minutes. Also, if you're on a wireless controller and it dies, you're done because it forces your game to pause and you have to restart from the beginning. I don't know if this one's as hard from a skill perspective, but unless you have a friend helping you out, it takes a long time and it's maybe not the easiest to do by yourself. You have to have some focus here. Dead Space 2 had a pretty challenging achievement called Hard to the Core. Essentially, you have to play through Dead Space 2 on the highest difficulty without checkpoints, low resources like ammo, healing, etc. So at this point, it's a pretty casual, normal, highest difficulty type achievement. The twist comes in though for this achievement is that in total, you only are able to save the game 3 times for your entire playthrough. And the game has an average length of 15 hours or so. So not only can you just not freely save every time you get past a hard point, you only have 4 of these to choose, and if you die or something happens, you end up getting set back to wherever your last checkpoint was, and if you have to kind of place them every 4 hours or so, the setbacks are pretty severe if you mess up, and that's really brutal. Dead Space 2 on hardest difficulty isn't an easy task by any means either, making this achievement definitely a challenging one, only for people really familiar with the game. There's the 7-Day Survivor achievement from Dead Rising, which basically you have to play through the whole game so you can finish and unlock Infinity Mode, which is a mode where your health slowly drains and you have to keep eating food to get your health back up. With this mode now activated, you have to survive 14 hours in real life without checkpoints, saves, or pauses, which means you have to frantically and frequently be playing if you want to actually be able to survive the 14 hours, because with your health constantly decaying and you need food to keep your health up, you'll just die if you hide away for a large portion of time. This ends up being way more strategic than maybe what they thought the achievement would make for originally, but yeah, hey, this is definitely one if you're looking for an ultimate challenge to go after, give this one a try. Who would have thought Dead Rising would throw an oddball like that? Mega Man 10 is notorious for having a pretty challenging achievement. If you can get the Mr. Perfect achievement in Mega Man, well, then you're doing something pretty right. This one can't be too hard, right? You just have to clear the entire game without getting damaged. What? Besides the fact that you have to be very familiar with what you're getting into throughout the run of Mega Man 10, the real challenge really comes up on some of the boss phases, as not only do you have to be ready to counter any specific move, you also have to move quick enough to try to kill the boss as fast as possible to not give them the opportunity to hit you with some more powerful attacks. And there's quite a bit of variety in this game, and to do an entire run without taking any damage whatsoever, it doesn't matter what difficulty you're on, this is still a very challenging achievement, and not too many people have been able to get this one just yet. Well, we don't want to undersell how much studying and precision goes into getting this achievement. Okay, what about Outlast and the Energizer achievement? Surely this can't be too hard. Finish the game in insane mode without reloading camera batteries? What? Yeah, so this achievement already sounds awful, but also this game is notorious for being one of the darkest games that have come out in the last decade, and the camera is like the one source of light that you have, and you're on the hardest difficulty, and you have to essentially play through the game being careful to not use the camera at all, pretty much. Also, for this achievement, you can't use checkpoints and go back, so you have to do this in one complete run, and with this being on the hardest difficulty, there's a lot more to face, like enemies that are stronger and more deadly than other enemy types. Like, you can just get like one-shotted and then your run's done. If you're gonna pull off this achievement, you have to have excellent knowledge of the game and the layout of the entire run of the game. There are some strategies out there, and you do get to use the night vision briefly before your first battery runs out, and you're gonna have to be very, very careful and picky with when you actually use it. Also, it's important to know which enemies you avoid and which ones you're gonna face off against. From what we can tell through true achievements, only about 1% of players actually are able to pull this one off, so hey, if you can give it a go, good luck to you. Okay, this one's probably unexpected, but the Pull My Finger achievement from Descenders. Descenders is like this simple bike game. You go downhill, you try to survive. If you bail, you lose lives, and the goal is to make it through like the 4 worlds and get a bunch of points and just make it to the end without dying and running out of lives. However, there's also this point system at the bottom based on how many tricks you do, and every time you finish a level, your points get added into your overall score for your run. Now, to get the achievement, Pull My Finger, you have to have the Whoopee Cushion item, which is an extraordinary item which you can only get out of a random draw as a reward for finishing your run, win or lose. Now, for this achievement that's worth 0 gamer score, you have to use the Whoopee Cushion 200 times. It's like hitting the horn 200 times. That part isn't the hard part. It's unlocking the Whoopee Cushion that really is what takes forever. Every time your run is completed, whether you run out of lives or you finish it, you get a random reward item. However, the rarity of the reward item is based on how many points you got overall. The Whoopee Cushion is classified as an extraordinary item, and it's one of 60 extraordinary items. Now, your score will actually dictate how high of a percentage chance you have of getting an extraordinary item. If you get 50,000 points in a single run, you have a 20% chance of getting an item. If you can survive long enough and get 250,000 points, which is pretty challenging in itself, taking maybe an hour if you've optimized some things, you can guarantee an 100% chance of getting an extraordinary item. However, then from the extraordinary item pool, there's 60 items, meaning you only have a 1 in 60 chance of actually getting the item that you need, which is the Whoopee Cushion. So you have 2 approaches to this. You can either do 50k rep, which is a 20% chance of having a 1 in 60 chance of getting the item you need, or a 250,000 run, which takes longer and is harder, and have a 100% chance of getting a 1 in 60 chance of the item you need. The good news is the more items you get that are extraordinary that are not the Whoopee Cushion, the pool of potential items, since there's no duplicates, goes up. You can see how this is such a challenging achievement because it's hard enough to get 250,000 points in a run. You have to be pretty skilled, and on top of that, you have to be optimizing your points perfectly, and then that still only guarantees a very small chance at getting the item you need. I'm still trying to get this achievement years later. I jump on Descenders and work towards this one. I think I'm down to like 50 extraordinary items out of the 60, but still no Whoopee Cushion, and I'm still chipping away at this one. Okay, now let's go ahead and shift gears and look at Elder Scrolls Online, because this achievement might actually be completely impossible for majority or most players that pick up this game and play it. I think it's incredibly rare, and only a handful of players actually have this achievement under their belt. We're of course talking about the elusive Emperor achievement. Now, we've only played Elder Scrolls Online a few times, so I'm not sure I fully understand how the PvP side of the game functions, but long story short, you basically go on campaigns with your alliance and capture zones, and whoever controls the 6 keeps around the Imperial City is the current alliance in power. Okay, that's fine enough, but to take it a step further, if you want to get the Emperor achievement, you need to be the highest rated player in your alliance at the time of taking the Imperial City. This adds this whole new level of depth, grind, and sheer willpower to climb your way to the top amongst all the other players that are playing Elder Scrolls Online. And if you look at leaderboards online, this achievement is very, very rare. Only one person can have the title of being the highest rated player in an alliance, so it's like a thing that only one person can get at a time. And yeah, this achievement isn't just one that you can grind your way to as easily as some other achievements that are still time consuming but not as hard. In general, when it comes to games like this, when we're looking for achievements, multiplayer related achievements always add this extra level of difficulty, especially when the game starts to get older, because it's harder to go back and do things that might require a player base to let you even attempt to go for certain achievements. But one that was even hard back in the day, that's still incredibly challenging nowadays, is the World Champion multiplayer achievement in Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. This achievement, called World Champion, requires you essentially to become the top player in the game, #1 on the leaderboard, period. And what's interesting about this is maybe right when the game came out, if you hit the game hard, you had a fighting chance at getting up on the top of the leaderboard briefly long enough to get this achievement. But the longer the game was out and the way that the game tracks which stats put you up on the leaderboard, obviously the harder this achievement gets. Basically, you just have to touch that top spot, but obviously with this game being a little bit older now, it's not an easy task. As far as we can tell, the last person who got this achievement was all the way back in 2020 with the username magthrower12, and apparently it took roughly 4,000 hours of grinding just to get the achievement. Now, not only that, the whole methodology of getting to that #1 rank is incredibly confusing as well. There's a ton of discussion on websites like True Achievement of people trying to figure out the strategy to even level up and navigate their way to the upper ranks. Like, it all matters based on like what type of lobby you're in, and then some players try to manipulate the lobbies. There's D-ranking involved to try to get yourself in a better scenario to climb up the ranks even easier. Now, it's worth noting this game came out all the way back in 2006, and players were still grinding away trying to get the achievements all the way through these forum posts, and people were talking about it back in 2012, 2014, and like we said, from what we can tell, the last person who's noted getting it was back in 2020, and I think it only can get harder to reach that #1 spot. With the fact that the player base is pretty small in this game nowadays, getting this achievement might actually be close or near impossible, but there still could be a path to get that achievement. It would just take a ridiculously long amount of time, so this one's definitely earning a special place on our list of hardest achievements. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus actually has a little bit of notoriety nowadays because of its challenges and achievements as well. After you've played through Wolfenstein 2 one complete time, you unlock a new difficulty known as Mein Leben. This essentially gives you access to play through the game on the hardest difficulty. That's great and all, but also it's a permadeath run, which means if you die at any point, game over, you're back at the very beginning of the game, which means to do a full run through of the game without dying, you're looking at 10 hours if you're really good, minimum. And the fact that you probably have to take it very slow and carefully means that this achievement likely is much longer for a run that actually makes it to the end. Tie this to the fact that Wolfenstein 2 already is a pretty brutal and unforgiving game on the higher difficulties, and yeah, it makes sense that this achievement or trophy isn't one that many players have. despite the fact that this game is pretty popular still. Next, let's look at Crypt of the Necro Dancer, and this is one of the hardest PlayStation trophies in the entire catalog of games out there for PlayStation specifically. But for the game Crypt of the Necro Dancer, from our understanding here, you have to play through the game without picking up any items, have no upgrades, no weapons, and no healing at all, and play through the game 9 times in a row, once with each character in one sitting. If you go to PSN Profiles, that tracks the lowest of the low trophy, from their user base, it looks like only 18 people have ever been able to achieve this trophy out of the 28,000 players that are logged in their system. Okay, this next one might not be as hard to get as it is just randomly complex and unique, but the Stanley Parable is a very interesting game, and there's an achievement that is notorious known as the Super Go Outside achievement. Now this one, it requires no skill at all. All you have to do is load up the Stanley Parable, play the game like you normally would play it or whatever, and then when you're done with the game and you don't think you're going to go back for anything, you have to specifically not play the game or touch it for 10 years. Then, 10 years later, open up your game and boom, you'll get the Super Go Outside achievement, and it only took you a decade to actually manage to get. Good job. But what did you guys think of these achievements? Have you managed to pull off any of these achievements, and do you have them, or trophies, I guess? Was there a really hard achievement or trophy that we missed in this video that maybe we should talk about in a future video? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe and notifications on for more videos like this on just video game feats, Xbox, PlayStation, all types of stuff. Also, huge shout out to our patrons for all of the support, helping our channel continue to make content like this. If you want to join our Patreon list, there's a link in the description. You get your name in the credits like this. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.